G'day, I'm Paul, and I'm cold. I've got the gloves on. Isuzu, so they have rolled out a smaller version of their 4-cylinder diesel in the D-Max, and it has finally made its way into the SUV version of the D-Max, which is the MU-X. So today I thought we'd jump behind the wheel. We've already done a few reviews on the MU-X, so today we're going to focus on the engine itself. I'm going to gloss over the rest of it, so if you do want to see a bit more detail on the MU-X, you can have a look at our more detailed review in the description below. Today's going to be more about the engine and whether it is worth saving the money on it. How much are you saving? Well, this here is the top spec that's available in the 1.9 litre. It is the LSU, priced at just under $60,000. The entire range kicks off with an entry-level version of this engine, and this can be picked either in 4x2 or 4x4, which is the spec that we have here. It saves you $2,000 over the 3 litre, so decent price saving, but is it worth it? That's what we want to find out today. So this competes with stuff like the Mitsubishi Pajero Sport, the Ford Everest, Toyota Fortuner, all of those sort of ute-based SUVs. We're also going to do a little bit of light off-roading today, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of this review, you can use the time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters below. And are you in the market for a new car? Well, have I got a deal for you? Well, actually, I have a page full of them. All you need to do is go to Google, type in "Help Me CarExpert," or use the QR code on the screen. It's going to take you to the CarExpert website. We're a big company. It's like over 60 full-time employees. Very impressive. We also have a page on the site with all of the deals going in Australia this month to help you figure out which car you need to pick. We can then even put you in touch with one of our friendly dealers who might even be able to get you a better deal as well. So go to Google, type in "Help Me CarExpert," or whip your phone out, scan the QR code, and away you go. Now let's talk about exterior design. Your optional colours are $650. The design hasn't really changed. If you do look at what they just did with the D-Max, we just reviewed the updated X-Terrain. That has actually received a different design at the front, some interior changes as well. As we were filming this, they literally announced the updated MU-X for Thailand. They haven't confirmed it yet for Australia at the time of us filming this, but I suspect it will come to Australia. So if you are wanting to buy an MU-X, just wait a few more months because you'll get the facelift with all the new interior stuff from the D-Max that just fixes a couple of the little complaints I had there. So in terms of the grille, you've got your Isuzu logo there. This color, which I know that you... In fact, let me know in the comment section below. I can't remember what we decided this color was. It's sort of like a nickel colored sort of thing with some reflections in it. So that color there. You got full LED headlights, fog lights down the bottom there. LSU picks up front and rear parking sensors as well, so you can see those off to the side there. Now around the side, you've got yourself a set of 18-inch alloy wheels with highway terrain tires, sort of a matte finish there on the wheel. Decent looking design, and if you do want a bit more off-road ability, you want to go down the path of all terrains. This is a tyre that's going to give you economy on the highway and then just a little bit of light off-roading ability in terms of that tyre profile. You've got an indicator built into the wing mirror there. No 360 camera available, which is a little bit disappointing. A lot of the competitors in this segment are now offering that. Isuzu is kind of the only one that still hasn't caught up on that. Side steps, I've mentioned before in other reviews here, it's just a bit of a plasticky side step, and if you are going to do some off-roading, that is going to get fairly damaged if you land on a rock, so worth replacing with an aftermarket accessory if off-roading is going to be your thing in your new MU-X. Roof rails up the top there, privacy glass, and then come to the back with me. So around the back here, you have partial LED tail lights. There's halogen lamps built into there, and then reverse light down the bottom there. 3,000 kilo towing capacity, so it's 500 kilos short of the bigger engine version of this car. So that is worth keeping in mind. If you're not really going to be towing any big loads, you don't necessarily need to worry about the compromise there on towing capacity. And that's one of the trade-offs you're going to have. The $2,000 price difference means you're saving money. It's going to go a little easier on fuel as well, but you just won't be able to tow as much. So just something to keep in mind. Isuzu along the back there, MU-X as well. There's really nothing on here that signifies that this is actually the smaller version of this vehicle in terms of the engine capacity. So I think they're doing that a lot now with these cars. Instead of showing everyone how much you've spent or how little you've spent, they've kind of just debadged it to keep it nice and clean as well. Reverse camera is nestled under here. It is offset, so it means that when you are backing into a trailer, it is going to be offset to the trailer, which is just a little bit frustrating. I don't know why they don't just make it center so that it is easier to just back into that and hook up as required. So let me know in the comments section below. What do you reckon about MU-X with a 1.9? Do you think it's enough of a price difference? Would you just go the 3 litre? I am keen for your feedback. Let me know in the comments section below. So we're inside the MU-X. Look, this interior is starting to feel a little bit dated now. There's piano black everywhere here, and that infotainment screen is just a little bit fiddly to use because you don't have the knobs to sort of get around the place and quickly adjust volumes and all that sort of stuff. But this will change when they roll out the update that they fitted to the D-Max. So that should just be around the corner. Got the bigger screen in the center. So definitely useful features to have. Outside of that though, it does sort of feel premium enough if you look beyond the design. So you've got that soft touch finish along the dashboard there with that stitching. You've got the dual tiered glove boxes and then plenty of storage throughout the cabin as well. The update to this also brings with it USB-C charging. This still has USB-A and a 12-volt outlet as well. No wireless phone charging here either. And then a lot of blank buttons here. Even though this is the top spec that you can get with the 1.9, you still do have quite a lot of blank buttons that are reserved for the 3-litre and other variants within the range. So that is just worth keeping in mind. But you do get a couple of useful features like your cup holders in front of the air vents, so that keeps warm drinks warm on hot days, cold days, and then cold drinks cold on hot days. So that is a useful feature. On the seat comfort front, manually adjustable driver and front passenger seat with this sort of cloth material. You do have electric lumbar adjustment for the driver's side though, so there is a little bit of electric adjustment there, but nothing sort of too crazy. And then on the steering front, your steering offers both tilt and reach adjustment, and in terms of climate controls, you have dual zone automatic climate control. Infotainment, 9-inch infotainment screen. You get Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It's wireless for Apple CarPlay and fairly easy to use, but can just be a little bit clumsy there when you are sort of trying to hop between the menus. Like I said before, the new infotainment system changes that and makes it far easier to use. In terms of the second row, there is a reasonable amount of room back there. The second row doesn't move forwards or backwards, so it means that you do have limited amount of space available for the third row. And while the second row does offer enough accommodation there for adults, it can just feel a little bit cramped because you've got to remember that this shares a platform with the dual cab ute. So they can't exactly work miracles there in terms of legroom, but it is enough there. You have a center armrest there as well for the two outer passengers, ISOFIX points and top tether as well. So while the second row is a little bit cramped, the third row is actually surprisingly spacious for adults. So you've got a reasonable amount of knee room, toe room and headroom, but it is compromised in terms of your cargo capacity. There's just over 300 litres behind the third row. That expands to over 1,000 litres with the third row folded and over 2,000 litres with all of your rows folded. Okay, so we've just hit the road in the MU-X 1.9. One of the first things I noticed straight out of the bat is the engine noise. It is significantly quieter than the 3-litre. Yeah, both sort of idling and with some throttle input as well. It's pretty quiet. So that is one benefit. The 3-litre is not exactly the noisiest engine in the world, but it is noisier than some of its competitors, and you do notice that when you're starting to accelerate and when it's idling at the traffic lights. So that is a bonus. In terms of the rest of the package, this engine weighs less than the same engine that you're going to find in the upper spec models. So that means that you have slightly less weight over the front end there, and I'll be curious to see how that compares in terms of handling. In terms of get up and go, 1.9 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder diesel, 110 kilowatts of power, 350 newton meters of torque. So it's a full 100 newton meters down on the 3-litre version. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge amount, but it's not exactly like you're saving hundreds of kilos with this engine alone. So that means when you do get up, it really does feel like it is working very hard to achieve what it needs to achieve. And one of the things to me is I don't want to be in a position where driving along and I need to step on it and it's really sort of barely moving. And that's just with me and Igor in the car. You can imagine if you're trying to tow 3 tons on the back of this and have a family in the car, it is really going to feel like it's struggling. So I think my thought is that if you are going to buy one of these, if you are going to tow anything, I'd be steering towards the 3-litre as opposed to the 1.9. It is just going to give you a bit more flexibility and a bit more overhead when it comes to that overtaking power and the punch that you need to keep up with traffic. But if you're not into towing, what does that mean in terms of fuel economy? So Isuzu claims a figure of under 8 litres per 100 Ks. We're actually sitting on around 8. So it is pretty efficient for a vehicle this size to be using such a little amount of fuel. So that is one of the benefits that you're going to get. If you need a big vehicle like this to drive in and around the city, to move kids around, you might even want to go for the 4x2 because you don't need to do any sort of serious off-roading. I think that tells you that this is going to save you in the hip pocket, not only on the purchase price, but on the fuel price as well, given you're going to be feeding this with less fuel while you go. Now, in terms of the ride, it is sort of pretty soft in and around town. It does feel a little bit jittery, but that is just due to the body-on-frame structure. It shares a lot of stuff with the dual cab ute. The rear suspension is different, but the rest of it sort of feels fairly similar in terms of the way that it handles bumps and things like that. But let's see what it's like on our sine waves here at 130, which is the maximum speed limit in Australia. Sure, I'm having to absolutely work for this. All right, there's 130. Yeah, it's a pretty floaty. So yeah, it feels a little bit softer than it does in the standard MU-X, and that could partly be thanks to the less weight that you have over the front of the vehicle as well. So the ride could probably just do with a little bit more tuning there. Not the end of the world, but it means that you're going to get comfort in and around the city. And if you do go out into the country, it is just going to feel a little bit floaty once you hit a few of those consecutive sine waves. Now, bumpy road time. We do this at 90 k's an hour to see what the ride is like when you do hit a stretch of dodgy Aussie road. So I've got a condensed sine wave here as well. Actually does feel quite comfortable here. It is a tiny bit sort of jittery, but the softness of the ride sort of smooths it out nicely. Here's our condensed sine wave. Yeah, it's doing well there. It's falling into all of those divots and sort of doing what you expect it to do. So yeah, not a terrible effort here on the choppy stuff. Now, one of the things I like here, they've integrated this button here, which turns off your lane departure warning and all that sort of stuff, which is definitely good news. We did test this on our Bowl last time we were here, and it didn't do a really good job of holding itself within the lanes. So that is just something to keep in mind. If you are going to do a long distance drive, it is handy to have that technology there, but you're going to want to be on top of it most of the time because it does tend to veer towards the lines and kind of gets you into the territory of the lane next to you pretty quickly. Now, on visibility, I can see clearly down the front of the car there. The wing mirrors are huge, which is great, and visibility at the back is good too. Just keep in mind, if you do have that third row up, it is going to impede your vision just a little bit. In terms of cabin noise, on the smoother road surfaces, it's actually pretty quiet inside the car. Once you do hit the coarse chip stuff, it is a little bit louder, but not the end of the world. This is how it went up against our calibrated sound meter. If you do want to see how this compares to other SUVs we've tested, there's a link in the description below. Now, what is it like once the speed picks up? I found the last MU-X we drove quite entertaining, so let's see what this is like. Obviously, not everyone's going to be driving like this, but we test all the cars back to back in the same way. Whoop, just not a fan of that. That stability control, actually, I remember now in the last MU-X is highly overactive, and it is quite wet out there at the moment, so it is going to just be a little bit fussy for us. Yeah, it's interesting. It feels like it has a bit more body roll than a standard MU-X or the 3-litre MU-X. So I do wonder whether they have deliberately softened it out due to less weight. And the steering is quite light as well compared to stuff like Fortuner and Everest and Pajero Sport as well. But look, it is communicative, so you do feel what's going on. It's just a bit light. Yeah, this engine really lacks punch. You just have to be up it constantly to feel like you're actually sort of getting anywhere. Look, the 6-speed auto isn't too bad. It's sort of responsive enough, but it just keeps wanting to shift up gears for economy, and it means that when you do need it to be holding gears, it's just sort of moving around way too much. You can manually select gears using the shifter though, so that sort of answers that question. So yeah, look, it's fine. Nothing sort of too crazy. Now, time to do a little bit of performance testing. Let's see how this compares to the 3-litre for acceleration. We're going to go from 0 to 100 and then up to 120 so I can see what the 80 to 120 overtaking time is like. Turned off traction control. Let's give it a shot and see how we go. A little bit of wheel slip off the line. All right, there's 80, 90, 100. And 120. All right, come to a stop. Took a little while to get there. So 0 to 100, 12.47 seconds. That is a long time. And then 80 to 120, 9.87 seconds. So yeah, not amazing either. So yes, I think that is one of the downfalls of this engine. It is just going to take you a long time to sort of accelerate and catch up to what you need to. So let's go back and we'll do a stop from 100 k's an hour. Okay, here we go. There's about 100 and on the brakes. Okay. Now it is wet outside at the moment, so I'm not expecting this to be amazing, but we'll see how we went anyway. 100 to 0, 4.19 seconds and 59 meters. So yes, it is wet, but just to put it into context, we're driving the new MG3 at the moment, and that only just stopped in a slightly shorter distance. So yeah, this actually wasn't that bad. Now, if you do want to see how this compares to other cars that we've tested before, have a look at the link in the description below. All right, how fast does it go in reverse? Let's find out. Here we go. All right, so 44 kilometers an hour. Okay, so it is time to do a little bit of light off-roading. It is muddy, it is yuck out there, so this should be interesting, but we'll see how we go. Just in terms of the actual physical sort of four-wheel drive equipment, you've got two-wheel drive high range, which is what you use on sealed surfaces, four-wheel drive high range, which is what you use on unsealed surfaces, and four-wheel drive low range. This doesn't have like a 4-auto mode like you're going to find in Everest and Pajero Sport. You do have rear diff lock that works when you're in low range, and you've got a rough road mode that basically tailors the traction control system to work both in two-wheel drive and 4-high. And I like this mode because it fixes a lot of the issues we had previously with this vehicle and traction control not being very good. So we'll give that a shot. Hill descent control as well. In terms of the actual numbers, ground clearance 235 millimeters, and you've got an approach angle of 29.2 degrees. That's the angle of the face you can approach before you hit the front of the car. A departure angle of 26.9 degrees, which is the same but in reverse. And finally, a weighting depth of 800 millimeters. So that is pretty decent. What we're going to do, we're going to set off now in two-wheel drive high range and getting into a situation where we have one of the rear wheels off the ground, and the car is then going to need to basically shuffle torque to the wheel with traction, and that will be a good test of the traction control system. Real life scenario is where you haven't engaged four-wheel drive high range and you're in a spot where you just need a little bit more slip, like a grassy hill or something like that. This is just the tool you need for it, so we'll test it out now and see if it works. Okay, it's so gloomy out there today. Okay, so what we'll do first, I'll just go through here without rough road mode on, so just standard traction control, and we'll see what happens. So get that rear wheel off the ground, which is just there. So I'll roll onto that. So you can see traction control biting there. It's trying to sort itself out. I'm now flat to the board. Nothing is happening there. So I can switch off traction control, but what you'll note here is that it'll just flare up and spin the wheels kind of pretty much infinitely and not get us anywhere, so that is entirely pointless. So let's put rough road mode on. So one click of that, you can see it's active just there. Now I'll just do the same thing, roll onto the throttle. Look at that, almost immediately it is pushing us straight over that. So that shows you that it is literally electronics that can fix a basic situation like that, where people will get stuck and not be able to go anywhere without switching into four-wheel drive high range, which I understand is easy enough to do, but yeah, I think that's it's a really good feature, and they've engineered that quite nicely. So what we're going to do now is go back over the same hill, except in four-wheel drive high range, and we'll see how that works. This time I'm going to kick up the rear and the front just to get it into a position where it has to again lean on its traction controls to get it out. So we'll see how well that works. And again, I'll use rough road mode if required. So let's get this set up. They've filled in these giant holes for us, which is good. Cars are like disappearing into there. So here we go. Rear right has limited traction. Front left, limited traction. So again, you can feel it surging. Traction control doesn't know what it's going to do, so it's sort of pooing itself. So I'm going to put rough road mode on. Let's see how it goes now. Feeding in more and more throttle. There it is. Gee, genuinely impressed with that. That is such a good job. Mitsubishi needs something like that. We tested the Triton here recently and it really struggled. So they need a rough road mode like our Isuzu has. Okay, so it is time for our hill. It is nasty, it's muddy. This is going to be interesting on highway terrain. So we're going to go to low range and I'm going to put the rear diff lock on as well and we will see what happens. So first up, what we're going to do is drive up here just with gradual throttle. Then I'll come back around and come to a stop and then see if it'll take off again. So here we go. Yeah, it's been quite wet here, so it's got a sort of a muddy layer beneath the skin, but let's see how it fares here without rough road mode on. That seems to be going okay. Little slip there, but it got itself composed and then worked out nicely. All right, little mud bog here. And hill descent now. Now with the hill descent control, look, this isn't the world's biggest hill and you could probably just gear down and have better control over the speed, but I'm just going to test it out anyway just to see how well it works. It's worth pointing out now as well, without that front camera, it is a little bit tricky to see where you're going here, and this is where a 360 camera would come in handy, I reckon. So hopefully the facelift of this actually has that. So I'm going to roll out of the brake here. We'll see how this goes. Yeah, it's reasonable descent speed, but it sort of goes quick and then it slows itself down, and I don't really have a way to control the speed beyond that. So would be nice to have like a variable speed setting, but that's fine for what it is. Okay, hill time again. This time I will come to a stop and then see if it has hill hold and then try and accelerate out of it. So here we go. Not sure what state the tyres are in, but I went through a fairly decent mud bog there. So here we go. I'll roll onto the throttle now. Okay, it's not going anywhere. All right, let's try rough road mode. That a shot, that's on. Now, that's just digging a hole. Go back a touch. Try that once more. Okay, here we go. No, it is not going to go. Even rough road mode is not helping us there. So it's muddy, I don't know. But yeah, it just wasn't loving that at all. Perhaps a front diff lock would help there. Perhaps nothing would help because highway terrains aren't exactly ideal for this. You probably want an all-terrain, but you know, it is what it is. So went up easy first time around, but yeah, second time around with a stop, it was just not keen to get up there. Okay, rocks time. So I've left it in low range. I'll just ride the brake with the throttle. See what it feels like across here. Okay, so yeah, around that 240 mil of ground clearance mark is enough to sort of traverse this without whacking too much underneath. It's actually quite comfortable in here as well. It's not throwing us around too much, which is good. But yeah, this is where your side steps are really going to get smashed up if they're not sturdy. So I think the side steps that come with these sort of standard in general in these sort of ute-based SUVs are just pretty sort of tame things. If you are going to be doing some proper off-roading, you're going to want to replace them. So, all right, our river is quite dry, so we won't bother going through that. So, yeah, look, MU-X, really just good off-road. That rough road mode really makes a lot of difference there. So it did struggle with that hill, but highway terrains, it is muddy at the moment too, so it's probably just not ideal situation for it. If you are going to do some proper off-roading, I would be getting suitable tyres for that task. But in terms of the electronics here, for going to a campsite or something pretty straightforward, it is definitely going to be up to the task. So the 1.9 litre MU-X, what do we think? Look, the MU-X in general is a good vehicle, but this isn't the one I would be buying. I think the 1.9 it's not really suitable for this size of vehicle, especially if you're going to do towing or you're going to constantly have it full of people and doing longer road trips. It just feels a little bit underdone. I think it's just worth spending the extra $2,000 on the bigger engine. It just gives you that confidence and surety behind the wheel, especially if you do want to go down the path of towing. That's basically it. MU-X, great vehicle, 1.9. Not so great for this type of vehicle, so I would just hold off to the facelift and also go for the 3 litre when that comes out as well. So let me know what you reckon in the comments section below. Do you own an MU-X? Do you own the 1.9? What has that been like? I'm keen for your feedback. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you like it and you share it with your mates. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. But until next time, take it easy.